This is WICR.
Broadcasting from the basement of La Penta, it's WICR.
Welcome back to Today with Matt and Dave. I'm Matt Ricker.
And I'm Dave Horvath.
And we're back with Dr. Zano, our special guest on today's show. And now we'll shift gears from 2016 race for the White House to the vacancy now on the Supreme Court when Justice Antonin Scalia passed away in, was it February? Yeah,
Yes.
End of February. And how that's going to shape the incoming cases. And now it's, it'll be tough now because they're basically opening up themselves to ties and, with the Senate not wanting to hold hearings for Obama's nominee, which is Merrick Garland of I forget, somewhere in California, right? The Ninth Circuit?
He's in the D.C. Circuit.
D.C. Circuit, right. Yeah. Okay. So, Dr. Zano, tell me what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean, we should say that Justice Scalia, when he was alive, had visited Iona College, and it
Right.
was, I think most students know Professor Yodice from the philosophy department, who's the chair of that department. When he was dean, he brought Antonin Scalia to campus, and it was, thrilling to meet him. And he obviously, well before your time, he spoke to the students. He spent a lot of time with students, and we all got a chance to hear him speak and to meet him, and it was thrilling. And so it was shocking, I think, when he passed away in Texas on a trip. And, I don't think anybody expected there was going to be a vacancy on the court this year. And there was. And then, of course, it was within hours of his death that we heard a talk that there, regardless of what the president did, that the Republicans in the Senate would not hold hearings and would not consider his nomination, or her nomination, if you will. The president, as you mentioned, went ahead and nominated a fairly well-known and well-liked justice in Justice Merrick Garland, who is actually, interestingly, very dear friends with Chief Justice John Roberts. They work together on the D.C. Circuit, and so they are very close friends. And Merrick Garland is somebody who had been thought of for the Supreme Court for many, many times, and he had been passed over until this time because, of course, President Obama has had two vacancies on the court before this one. So he nominated Justice Kagan and Justice Sotomayor. And now, of course, it's Merrick Garland. Now, the Republicans have been saying all along that they will not hold hearings, even though this is somebody who has been passed unanimously by the Senate in his previous confirmation hearings. But they have made the case it's not about him particularly. It's about the fact that they want the next president to have the ability to nominate and to consider nominating a Supreme Court justice. And so here we sit at a 4-4 tie with his nomination. He's still, we should say, not right now because they're on recess, he's still visiting the Senate, visiting senators. About 17 Republicans have said they would meet with him. He's met with many of the Democrats. That's standard practice before you go through a hearing. We haven't heard that they will hold hearings. Again, the Judiciary Committee has said they won't, but we have to wait and see. And of course, in the meantime, we have a court that's tied at 4-4 in some cases. We just learned, for instance, the other day that they tied 4-4 in a case. And there's some big decisions yet to come, including the first abortion case they've heard since 2007. So it's going to be interesting to see. There's no question Merrick Garland will not be on the bench, if at all, is certainly not this term. And there are real questions if he'll be on if he gets a hearing next term. So we could be looking at 8 justices on the court for, at least the next couple of years.
And as always, Republicans and Democrats in the Senate have been at each other's throats because, Republicans were bringing up the time when Vice President Joe Biden was at the time a senator from Delaware and head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and they brought up that old clip of him saying, the Democrats won't hold confirmation hearings for the president at the time, I think it was George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Then the Democrats come back saying it's not the same thing. And meanwhile, in both cases, it's an election year.
It smells of politics.
Mm-hmm.
and not only Joe Biden, but also the minority leader of the Senate, Harry Reid.
Yep.
Every time he has been interviewed, the interviewer rightly plays a clip of him saying the same thing Joe Biden did.
Yeah.
we will not consider this nomination. And of course, now he is saying exactly the opposite. And I think
Right.
this is what frustrates so many people
Mm-hmm.
with the system and with our senators and our representatives, is that they feel like their statements reek of politics, and they
Mm-hmm.
reek of what's in their personal or their party's best interest, as opposed to what's in the interest of the state or the country as a whole. And that is the reality of political life. Politics is about a fight for power, and you see both sides right now understanding the reality that whoever nominates and confirms the next person to the Supreme Court is going to have a seat for many, many years to come, and that is a tremendous amount of power. So they will fight tooth and nail to get that power and keep that power. That's why some of us love to study politics. It's all about power.
Right. And yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens in terms of if indeed Justice or Judge Garland gets, through the Senate. And, well, as of right now, no, because they're not even going to have those hearings. So we very well may be waiting, most likely be waiting for the next president to nominate someone. And maybe at that time in the future, the Senate will hold some hearings.
Yeah, and one of the conundrums, of course, the Republicans are in. Jeff Flake, a senator from Arizona who's a Republican, said, we should consider doing this in a lame duck session, because if we get a Democrat elected president, do we want Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders? If you're a Republican,
Right.
do you want them nominating somebody even more liberal
Right.
than Merrick Garland? Because Merrick Garland is a fairly moderate justice. And of course, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, has said, nope, we're not going to push through the nomination if we don't get a Republican in the White House. But that's a big challenge for the Republicans,
Right.
because if it's not Merrick Garland and a Democrat is elected, they are likely looking at an even more liberal justice, at least nomination. So they've got a tough road ahead if they don't win in November.
And Dave and I talked about this before, but the Republicans right now are, going crazy because it's basically, being split in two. The Republicans that have been supporting and endorsing Donald Trump, and then there's a few of the others that are, saying, no, I don't support his views, and they don't know who to support because they're not crazy about the other two, Ted Cruz and John Kasich, and it's just a dilemma.
Yeah, they like Ted Cruz less than they like Donald Trump. We have to
Hmm.
put it out there. So if you're a Republican, it's been kind of a tough year,
Right.
right? And I have to say, Democrats too. There's a lot of love for Bernie Sanders. A lot less excitement and energy for Hillary Clinton. So I do a lot of work on the exit polls, and as that data comes in, it's very clear that even Democrats who are voting for her, in many cases, they simply aren't excited about the prospect, but they think she may be the most experienced and the best candidate they have and the most able to win. But the excitement is not on her side, and that's going to be a big challenge for her as well.
Right.
Then going back to about Justice Scalia, one thing that at least I liked about him was the guy went just off of the Constitution. He was very right off the book. Like, this is what it says, and that's how I'm going to interpret it. And I think it's not going to happen, but that would be, in my opinion, who you'd want to be the next justice. You wanted someone who's going to be fair, not. I mean,
Right.
I always go back. I love the quote George Washington made way back when political parties are going to be the end of this country, because I, for one, believe in that 150%. That we fight more with each other than working together as a whole. And like what you said, Professor, it's all, how's it going to better my party or better me instead of bettering the nation? It should be, put away your differences and just work together. The idea is you're supposed to be helping our country so we don't get eradicated by another country or taken over by another country. Because that's a whole nother issue I fear for the future. That we'll see some country, with everything going on, and this is a whole nother debate, with everything going on with ISIS and them just seeing like, hey, look, we can just keep doing things like this. When's it going to happen? When are they just going to say, you know what? We're not scared of the U.S. because the U.S. has so many internal problems and fighting with each other. We can just, kind of sneak right in and just take over. Like that's my concern. Stop fighting with each other and just work together. It's really not a difficult thing.
That's all the time we have for today, and we thank Dr. Zano for coming by, and we certainly will bring her back on in the future, if not at the end of the semester, definitely in the fall semester when it gets
Oh, yeah.
closer to
Definitely.
Election Day. Maybe we'll even have a special Election Day coverage. But thank you, and we
Thank
appreciate
you for having
coming.
me. I love the fact you guys quote George Washington's farewell address. This is my favorite show ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. And with that, that's all we have for this afternoon on Today with Matt and Dave. We'll see you right back here next week at 2 p.m. With that, have a great weekend.
And adios, peeps.
I'm Matt Ricker.
And I'm Dave Horvath.
See you next time.